Hey guys, welcome to episode number 5, ABO Outfitters Podcast. Sitting here with the Leisure Outdoor Adventure Guide Team, Toby Kvalevog and Jason Fried and myself, and I can't wait to dig into the minds of some of the best fishing guides that walk this planet Earth. Stay tuned. Let's go. Welcome back, boy. It's we're already at episode number 5. It's been a fun run. I hope everybody's enjoying the podcast that we've been putting out. Toby, Jason, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to be here.
Are we officially like 6 feet apart? We're pretty close, right?
I am, for sure. I measured.
Yeah.
Pretty worried about it.
Yeah, you scare me anyways. Thanks for joining us. Just to get going here, I thought it'd be kind of fun to allow our listeners and viewers the chance to kind of get to know who you guys are. So Toby, we got kind of a list of things here for you, but why don't you kind of talk a little bit about your history as how you got into fish guiding, and as a tournament angler and coach, teacher, and I really want the viewers to hear about your hockey career as well.
For sure. Yeah, no. So I personally grew up in Bemidji, Minnesota, and like you, and as a kid grew up being, a participant in sports, baseball and hockey, and even tried basketball for about a day, different things. But, from very early age, I became competitive, which is kind of the key to everything I've done. And so from a young age, starting with fishing, I would didn't matter what it was, but I would walk, ride my bike, carry a canoe. My parents happened to live by the Mississippi River, which is smaller when you get up to Bemidji, but I half mile, but I would carry a canoe over my shoulders by, at the age of 12 years old to get down to the Mississippi River, all for 1 or 2 rock bass a day, and you fall in love right away with fishing, and then your competitive side takes over. And that kind of leads up to the tournaments that we'll get to in a little bit. But it was just a passion that we all share in fishing, and fishing is so special in that it's a competitive deal for me, but it's with fish, and I get to share that through guiding. But started fishing by my parents' house at the Mississippi River, and my grandma would take me down to the little channel between Lake Bemidji and Lake Irvin. If you've been to Bemidji, you know what I'm talking about. We'd fish off used to be a dock system right there. We'd catch some fish, maybe. And then around 7th grade, a good friend of mine who lived on Cass Lake started having a little bit of a fishing opener, and we would go out there, and next thing you know, from like 7th grade to 12th grade, I grew up fishing Cass Lake, which I know is a special lake for you too, Jeff. But I literally spent every single day. Kind of a funny story is, in that time frame, there was no sunglasses back then. We put oil on our skin to get a tan, and we'd go out and sit in the sun and bake and bake and bake. And, day 4 or 5 into fishing all day long in a little 12-foot crest liner with a 9.9 horse on it, tooling all over Cass Lake, which is a pretty big lake. We'd wake up in the mornings, and you couldn't open your eyes. Like, they literally were stuck together because of the, sleep in your eyes that you get from burning your eyeballs. And crazy, now you think about sun and all that. But, so the passion was there. Like, literally all I could think about doing was fishing. And then take a kid fishing happened to me. And it was like an aha moment, and I did it first as a kid. I was invited to go fishing, and I fished with Rob Baumer. And he was one of the guys that worked at Dave's Sport and Tackle up there in Bemidji, if you remember, before it turned into Blue Water, but Dave's. And I used to go help those guys with leeches and whatever, and he took me out for Take a Kid fishing. And it was the first time I spent any time in a boat on Lake Bemidji with a graph. And he was able to, it was like the old Lowrance, with the flasher, and he was able to show me. We were fishing off a Diamond Point bar, and we went over some fish, and these little red lights showed up. And I remember thinking, oh, that's crazy. What is that? And he goes, that's a fish. and we were pulling leeches. I can remember it was like yesterday, and it was just a little bit later. Boom, I got a bite. We caught a fish, right? And so take kid fishing taught me what fishing could be like, as opposed to, again, the Huck Finn that carried his rod through the bushes on the Mississippi River to catch a rock bass out of a beaver dam, right? That was my fishing experience before that. And then now here I am, I'm in a boat on Lake Bemidji. So fishing started early for me, and take a kid fishing was very pivotal in my fishing career. And it wasn't too much later that in college, I started early enough. In college, I started then giving back. Like we had a boat, I'd come back, and my first guiding experiences were always take a kid fishing. Like every year, it was only one a year, but for 3 years in a row, while I was in college, I would take kids out. And we would, go focus on crappies or whatever. And it was super fun to share that experience and share the passion with kids. So I started there, but fishing, getting into sports, and that was part of the whole deal. So Toby Kvalevog is a fisherman, and that was the start of it. But the competitive side of me has always been there, and sports were very important for me, my family, my brother Shane, my parents. They spent so much time invested in us as kids, which is crucial to all of this. And when we talk about take kid fishing or whatever, that you have to have that support. So my parents, were very supportive and made sure we had what we could do. They would work the extra hours, make sure we had what we needed to participate in sports. And for me, being the youngest of two, I was always a little brother that tried to keep up. Again, competing. I have a brother that's a year and a half, 2 years older than me. And competing, always trying to keep up. His older brothers would come over, or his older friends would come over, and I would always be that little rugrat that was trying to hang on, and probably annoying. I'm sure if you ask Shane, it would be really annoying. But I was always there, whether we were playing punt the football or playing catch or whatever it is. Sports started early, and so hockey was my deal. And from a young age, I started playing hockey and skating out, playing forward, and I was fairly successful at it. Again, competitive, and we were playing in a tournament in squirts, and we got killed. And in hockey, there's like every 2 years you get a different year group that you play with. In my second year at squirts, or second years at Pee-wees, or second years at Bantam, or my senior year in high school, our team just wasn't as successful, and so we struggled. And in squirts, we were playing a team in Canada. And we just got killed. I don't know, it was probably like 9-0 or whatever it was. And I went back to kind of give the goalie a tap on the pads after goal 7 or 8. And I know I was upset, probably tears, because I'm a little bit of a competitive freak. And the goalie, I went back there to give him, he had his head down, and it looked like he was crying. And I went back there to give him a tap on the pads. It turns out he was laughing. Like it wasn't a big deal to him. And I was furious. And so went to the coach and told the coach, like, hey, I want to try goalie tomorrow. And never looked back, and started playing goalie and started going to camps and doing this, that, and the other thing. And again, the support of the parents, I was lucky enough to do that, and happened across a gentleman that was a goalie that maybe some of you know of by the name of Vladislav Tretiak, the best goalie in the world ever back in the 80s, the Red Army, and he brought me in, put me under his wing, and I was kind of his right-hand man for a while at international hockey camps in Detroit Lakes. And I spent probably 5-6 years working and training with Tretiak in the summers. And through this process, high school, I made a jump to college hockey, play at the University of North Dakota, and become successful. And I was able to play and start at the University of North Dakota for pretty much 3.5 years, started game number 1, and went all the way through my senior year, about halfway through, and did eventually get passed up by a freshman who was on fire. But that was okay, because I had an awesome experience and played a ton of games, hold a record for the most games played in North Dakota. And it all was because the competitive edge, which I acquired young, luckily being a younger brother, and learning to compete in everything I do. And it's been the kind of the driving light in my life, whether I'm teaching physical education, coaching one of my sports that I coach now currently, or fishing. That's been me. So Toby Kvalevog, to answer your question in a really long version, is as a kid that's just passionate about fishing, no longer a kid, 45 years old later, got a little gray in my beard now, but I'm still competitive, love to fish, love to hunt, and never like to finish second. But I share that passion as an educator. I teach now. That's very important to me, and I coach. I'm I'm able to express the enjoyment of the sport I love, fishing, and as a teacher, just able to make those connections and share that passion with people, and now that's my number one passion.
What a sweet story. And Toby kind of downplayed, he talked about playing at North Dakota, but whenever he talks about as a hockey player, he was, I remember myself watching you in that district game, playing and watching you make save after save, and it still stands. I mean, I was a young boy, and I can picture this in the old Nymore rink, the coldest rink probably in Minnesota. I can remember sitting there watching you play, and I was in awe, and I don't think I've ever told you that, actually. So I just remember sitting right in the backboards, and I think you had 76 saves that game.
Possibly. That seems like a lot, but
it's the record for the most saves in Minnesota as a goaltender with 15-minute periods,
right,
in a single game.
Right. Yeah, that was, and I appreciate that. The thing was, it's funny that you say that, and I can picture that game too. Like right now I can remember every goal, and it was a big game. It was playoffs. But yes, downplaying it, we were Bemidji Lumberjacks, pride of Bemidji. Is, as far as hockey goes, it's there's a lot of faithful hockey alumni and followers in Bemidji, and we were the team that was playing a home playoff game against Red Lake Falls in Nymore, and we lost.
Yep.
So those are the things I remember.
Yes,
you remember seeing my performance. I don't recall that as much anymore. I just remember the fact that we lost, and I probably take blame. So that's cool. That's cool that you shared that, and I appreciate that.
For kids that are listening, Toby said something pretty special there, is he put the ownership on him for that game, and it stands with you. It's not I think you see that nowadays more than ever is not a soft society, but putting the blame on everybody else but yourself.
Right.
And you've never been that type of person. You've always took ownership if something went wrong, and that's what I admire about you. One of the things I admire about you is you take ownership. Let's figure it out. I'm going to own this, and we're gonna tackle it. Right. It's been a fun ride so far. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and I was blessed. I've been blessed my entire life. I've had two parents. They still love each other, still married, still alive. And I know that's something that everybody has, as you know. And my father's my best friend, and we get to fish together. And my brother is my best friend. We're learning to play the guitar together right now. FaceTime over COVID.
Yeah,
we're learning to play because we're going to plan on doing some fishing this summer. We're going to share a boat and a guitar, and so I've been blessed, and I truly have. I have a wonderful wife and 3 kids that support this crazy addiction that we call fishing, and without any of that, there's no way this is possible. So I'm super pumped to talk about leisure outdoor adventures and be part of this with you guys. And I really appreciate you having us in. There's a favorite outdoor memory, and we're going to get it. That's how we close this show out. And so if you're listening to this, you're going to definitely, I have a feeling I know what Toby's going to talk about with his favorite outdoor memory. But how proud were you? And we're going to get into Jason, and I think there's going to be some similarities here. How proud were you to wear this jersey that I got up on the screen that says USA across the front of it? I'm a lot more proud about it now than I was then. And this is something that, as you get older, you become wiser. And I'm an 18-year-old kid there in that picture. And so I'm a Bemidji high school kid that played hockey and was successful at it, but I never really looked at myself as far as I just wanted to win. So when you look at this, when I get asked about that all the time, like the World Juniors was a huge deal. Quite honestly, when I was 17 and a half years old, I had no idea what it was. No idea. And I was drafted by the Ottawa Senators. And when I was called by Chico Resch, the head scout, goalie-wise, for the Ottawa Senators, to tell me I was drafted, I told my mom to take a message. I would call him back because I was busy cleaning fish. And that's the God's honest truth. And Chico Resch will tell you that same story, but that's where I was so, maybe an introvert a little bit, but so busy doing what I want to do at the time whether it be now
Don't
being an
bother
owner
me.
of Leisure Outdoor Adventures, and that's what makes you successful, right? So back to Freitas Mystic, Czechoslovakia, when this tournament was going on, you know, we weren't that good. We lost a lot of games, and I rotated games with another goalie, and I was certainly proud to put the USA jersey on, but you're sitting in locker rooms around guys, Jamie Langenbrunner, Adam Denmarsh, guys that had careers in the NHL, and you're kind of in awe of what they're doing, not really thinking about what you're doing, and also thinking about your team, University of North Dakota, I was missing out on during that time because I was gone. It was over Christmas, and I never was able to sit back, take a deep breath, and not be caught up in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
And now looking back, super cool. I wish I could go back now and just look around. I mean, the construction in Czechoslovakia and, you know, the old World War II, whatever, relics, buildings, and all the stuff that's going on. I had my first beer when I was 18 years old in Czechoslovakia in a bar. It was warm. It tasted really ale-ish, and I thought I just ate an aspirin. That's what I can remember. So those are the things you think about in Czechoslovakia, you know, but you know, I was there with Andy Brink. That's another cool story, like Bemidji, right? How small is Bemidji?
Yeah.
13,000 people. There was 2 kids on that team in Bemidji, Minnesota at the same time over in Czechoslovakia. So it was really cool. I look at it as a lot of memories, and every time I see that, and I still probably 5 times a year. So we're looking at some cards. There were some different cards that they produced for that team, and about 3-4 times a year, I get a letter in the mail, and it's a card, and somebody wants me to sign it.
I love this
and
one.
send it back, and yeah, the Upper Deck cards, and send it back to them, and they're like, I really enjoyed your career, and I hope you're doing well, and you know, people are, you know, they're card collectors, so
yeah.
But you get it, and you're like, you know what? That was pretty cool.
That's a big honor.
So I get more of that now, looking back. But, you know, I live in the moment, Jeff. You know, that's a cool history. You could ask any of my kids how cool that is, and they'd be like, you know, in my own household. And that's kind of how I feel, too. Like, you know, it is a huge accomplishment, and I appreciate it, and I love it. And I love the fact that people like yourself are, you know, you're impressed by it, and you enjoy hearing the stories. I really don't like to talk about myself, you know, when it comes to that stuff. And if people want to know, honestly, I'll give them questions and answers. But it's just a memory, you know. You know,
the thing that gets me excited about history and things like this, it shapes who you are as a person.
Right.
And the part that I love most about looking at these old photos and the pridefulness of having USA, you know, the Sioux jersey and everything else, it shapes who you are. And what I love most about you is I see you sharing that same passion, whether it's in fishing or in teaching or in just working with kids as a coach. You know, I think you said you coached how many teams at Brainerd here?
I was thinking about that today. So I've been teaching 21 years now, and I've coached almost every year, at least 2 sports, sometimes 3.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at 44 teams I've coached, not including my own kids.
See, and that's what I'm talking about, is how history shapes you. And I that's why I love to see where that walk of life has brought you. And I see you personally talk to my son Gavin, and you lit a fire under him because you held him accountable about one thing that happened at the gym, and the fire that has been lit. Just the little mind switch of taking accountability and wanting to win every step of the way. So
it's the little things, you know.
Yeah.
And those are the things you remember back. Like I remember that same thing, having a conversation with a coach or a teacher that called you out on something, and it just catches you off guard. But it does light a fire. Yeah. And the next thing you know, you're never making that mistake again.
Yes. And
I know what you're talking about, and that's absolutely correct. And I do see that with sports, and I see it with life in general, you know, and back to being a kid and competitive freak and hockey and now fishing. You know, I'm a compulsive person. We were just talking about turkey hunting earlier, and I said I don't want a turkey. I'm interested in it. I'm intrigued. I don't want to because I don't have time in my life for one more addiction, because I know if I do it once, it's going to be
Joe invited me to go the other day.
Yep.
And he's sitting there smiling, and I wanted to go, but I'm the same way. If I go,
no, there's no time.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to eliminate something else, and it's already a fine line, right? So
Frito. Thank you, Toby.
Yeah,
that's great to hear that. It's a great honor be sitting across the table. It's been a fun ride so far, and we'll get more into leisure outdoor adventures here in a bit. Frito, very similar walk. What brought you to Brainerd, and kind of give us the history of who Jason Freed is?
Well, I'd say definitely my history is similarities some, but also a lot of differences. I'm a transplant. I didn't grow up here, and even in this neck of the woods, I'm a farm kid from Northwest Iowa. Spent most of my time growing up on a farm and fishing farm ponds, and didn't have a boat for pretty much all throughout high school, and putting on waders and fishing in creeks and rivers and lakes and just fishing for whatever. And I think that's kind of got me going in the fishing world, but that drive and how much I fished, but I didn't really have it as like Toby walking down to the, with his canoe and stuff. And for me, it was always sports and growing up working, slinging hay bales in the summer and getting stronger for football in high school. That was always a big thing for me. Hockey to me was like a stick with a piece of charcoal, whopping around, but it was always football for me, and basketball and track. And it was always super active in high school. But it was always for us, it was going on our annual trip up to northern Minnesota at Lake Vermilion, and thinking that was always in the back of my mind how much I loved living up here, and thinking at some point in my life I'm going to live in Minnesota and I'm going to fish and I'm going to enjoy that. And then, but not everything goes as planned. And so graduated high school and went on, played 4 years of college football and enjoyed that, got my education degree, and eventually, still kept wanting to get up north, and we almost were there. And then one thing led to another, and we end up in this little dinky town of Houston, Minnesota, down 20 minutes from the Mississippi River and right on the Root River and bluff country. And we go down there, Toby and I go down there every fall and deer hunt now. And it's beautiful country. And once I got there, I never thought I'd leave. And, football's in my blood. And I always say, like, there's 4 F's in my life: family, faith, football, and fishing. And football will always be like that, now it's just such a big part of my life. And so when I was there, and for me, probably the one thing that Toby and I are awfully similar is just complacency drives me crazy. And so when I took over in Houston, little town, 1,100 people, we don't even play with 11 guys on the football fields. It's 9-man football in Houston. And to me, I hate losing. And I walked in a situation there, it just wasn't good. And fortunate enough that we were able to turn things around there and eventually won a state title. And that kind of opened some doors for me as a coach. And then I had the opportunities to move north. And that's a whole nother story of how I got to Brainerd. But I ended up here, and things have worked out for my wife and I and our 2 girls. And we moved up here, and then, I had a boat and was fishing on my own and doing that kind of thing. And started coaching football here, teaching social studies at the high school, and life was good. And then, end up from a guiding standpoint, just had a buddy up here in Brainerd that does some guiding and said, hey, you're a good fisherman, you should help me out. So did 7-8 trips that one summer. I'm like, this is kind of fun. I kind of like this, and it goes hand in hand, being a teacher and a coach. Guiding's kind of the same thing, and but from a fishing standpoint, I never want to be complacent. I don't want to just sit and do the same thing, go fish the same spots. And so that's always kind of driven me as a fisherman. And then always going back to, to me, fishing has always been something that is just always it's kind of a self-taught. My dad wasn't really a fisherman. My family really didn't fish. I had some buddies who fished a little bit, and it was always just something I just always did on my own. And I remember going on vacation on Lake Vermilion and finally getting the go-ahead from my dad to take out the little 16-foot Lund with a 25 horse and saying, you could stay within this part of the bay and you can fish. And just thinking, like, all right, this is, there's something about doing it on your own and figuring it out.
Yep.
And saying, I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do something different tomorrow, and I'm just going to keep getting better at this. I'm going to keep branching, and then going out with fishing guides on Vermilion, and had a couple of guys there, Gary Nordley, who's passed away, who was an English teacher, and he's just kind of his personality, and I'm like, this is something I could see myself doing someday. And so it just ended up, it just didn't happen the way you think it's going to happen right away, and things just kind of play out. And so when we finally moved up here, and now I teach up here at high school and social studies, and then was fortunate enough this last just a few weeks ago in March to take the head football job here, which is exciting for me, and it's going to change my life a little bit more. And but it's always between that, kind of like Toby, that competitiveness really drives me when it comes to being a coach and a teacher and a dad and a fishing guide and a tournament angler and such. So that's kind of my driving force, as I go. And then as, the president of the company and, not being complacent and saying we always want to build our company and grow our company. And so that's kind of what makes me tick every single day.
That's some good stuff there, Frito. I know I can probably speak for Toby as well, as we're pretty lucky to have you have that title as the president of the group. And, I just think back of where we started and where we're at now, LOA Guide Service. It's been pretty fun. So, and I'm kind of wearing many hats here, as the ABO Outfitters as we're growing that business. And but I can tell you both, it's an extreme honor to be able to sit at this table. It's a big deal for me, and to be able to share our story and where we're going and how we're taking it. So if you guys are watching this and if you find one thing in common, you can look, and this will kind of bring us into, Leisure Outdoor Adventures. And we're going to talk about this guide group in Minnesota. We're a competitive group, so much so that Toby and I have maybe been in a few wrestling matches in hotels after bowling games because maybe he beat me at bowling and I wanted to wrestle him. And
that didn't work out for you either.
This was probably 15 years ago or so, but I did come out on top on that one.
Right.
So anyways, we're let's get into Leisure Outdoor Adventures. Congratulations on the head football coach, by the way. And let's get into Leisure Outdoor Adventures and talk about that, Toby. When LOA started, we partnered with Steve Olson up in Walker, and really our partnership with Chase on the Lake, and
right,
and talk about that a little bit, how we started, and then I would like to get in and talk about it, kind of introduce the entire team as well, real briefly.
Sure.
But give a little history on LOA.
So, in time flies. So this is year 9? Is that correct?
I think it's year 10.
Yeah, this is the 10th
and
year.
That's what's crazy about it. So I was trying to reflect on that. So Leisure Outdoor Adventures began, and you were a guide, I was a guide, and we were with another guide service, and we had the opportunity to fish up on Leech Lake and form a relationship with Steve Olson, who is our partner. So Jeff Anderson, Steve Olson, Toby Kvalevog are the three-headed monster of the ownership side of things. And back 10 years ago with Leisure Outdoor Adventures. And that opportunity came because Chase on the Lake is a premier hotel resort on Leech Lake, right in the town of Walker. If you've been through Walker, you know where the Chase is. It's just right down the street from Reed Sporting Goods. And they were just starting up. They needed people to speak fish. That's what I remember in our business meetings. Like, Chase on the Lake can build a hotel. They know how to promote hotels. They know how to build that business model. But the people that are working at the front desk may come and go. Kind of a revolution there when it comes to people coming,
Yep.
and working that type of job. And day in and day out, they need somebody, quote unquote, that can speak fish and provide a good experience. And so the type of equipment, I remember the details. The type of equipment you have as a fishing guide, decent rods, decent reels, good equipment, a nice boat, not being willing to afraid to spend a little extra money to get the good bait, and that's kind of the motto that I live by, and I know you do too, all of you guys. And the conversation with Steve Olson, who was a majority owner at the Chase on the Lake, that's the kind of service he wanted to bring to Leech Lake. And so Leisure Hotels is the name of the company. That's kind of a nationwide company, Leisure Hotels, and Steve Olson is a partner and owner of that a business. Leisure Hotels and an outdoor adventure group came together to form Leisure Outdoor Adventures. And not many people know that that's where it came from, but leisure, the word leisure in Leisure Outdoors is from the Leisure Hotel Group. And that's where it started. And so the LOA brand started with that. It started with a passion for fishing, a premier guide service that uses the right equipment, goes an extra mile, and can talk fish and speak fish, and we're willing to build and form a relationship. And so that business started, the model started with Chase on the Lake on Leech Lake 10 years ago.
Yeah, passion. I think passion is really what drives our team and why we've been able to be successful as a group. You know, you see a lot of guide services come and they go, but really when we look at this list of guides, and Frito, I'm going to have you introduce each one of our guides. Each one of these guys are so unique, but the one thing that they have in common, well, there's two things. Everybody's ultra competitive, right? Yep. But more importantly, every single one of them loves to stinking fish. They love it. They love to go fishing.
Right.
And that's what makes our group special is let's face it, being a fishing guide, we're not retiring on
it's not super glamorous either.
No, it's not.
People talk, Jeff, say, hey, must be nice. You get to get up and go fishing every day. Yeah, right. You go to bed at 11 o'clock, babysitting minnows. Yeah. Get up at 5 o'clock getting new minnows because half the ones died.
And fix that broken rod that you forgot to fix.
Yes. Right, your aerator went out. Your leeches are dead because you didn't put them in the fridge. And now you got to scramble to find bait. Get your rods re-rigged at the landing while people are walking up. Put your smile on, go out fishing.
Over and over again.
And it's a 4-hour trip. It's an 8-hour trip. But it's a 16-hour day.
Yeah.
Every time. And what do you do when you have a little time at the end of the day? You go fishing because you want to find a better bite for the next customer the next day. And
that's the difference.
And that is the difference. And that's the difference with our guide group. And Jason will talk about each of our guides. But that was important to me. Like, you know, we have each brings something different as owners to this business, right? Because when you and I started this, we were both pretty raw, and you were in some businesses, and Steve Olson made a life out of this. Yeah, and he was instrumental in getting us off the ground, and with Chasing the Lake, and you of course with business background too, and we all brought something to this, and we talked about and had meetings, and you and I more so than Steve when it comes to the guides, because the trust factor was there, but that was the most important thing. You know, one of our first guides, Tim Hansky. Well, that kid started guiding before I did. Yeah. And, you know, he's been guiding since basically he got out of a stroller, I think. You know, and you talk about passion for fishing. Yeah. That kid, whether he's fly fishing or fishing bass or whatever those stump carps are called, the walleyes and muskies. Like, I mean, you name it, that kid's. And then all our guides are that way. And Jason's going to go through that and talk about Leisure Outdoor Adventures guides. But it started with a passion and a group that needed to speak fish for a hotel, which was up and coming, a new ownership, Chasing the Lake.
Yep. Frito, let's just introduce the guys real quick. We'll just start from the top on the website.
Kind of run through the starting lineup.
Yeah.
So obviously, we
should some background music, Joe.
Yeah. Kind of like we should be like the Bulls.
Yes.
So the first two guys up there are actually brand new to our team this year. You know, we're one of those. When we look for guides and whatnot, we want to try to find guys who fit our model and our mold and kind of what we look for and so on. And then we've obviously have grown and grown and grown. I mean, last year we did right around, I think it was 600 guide trips or something like that last year. And I mean, so we've grown ever since I've gone on. I mean, it's amazing. But this is Colby Gallagher. He's one thing you're going to learn. A lot of us are educators. He works in Northland Reamer, and CTE teacher. So he's kind of a jack of all trades. And he's going to be one of our guys who really works to build our Lake Winnie market, and a great guy, good stick, loves to fish tournaments, and I think he's going to do a really, really good job. We're going to call him Big Red or something like that.
I like that.
He fits the mold perfectly. You know, I didn't know Colby that well, but when he came here, and you could see that he's a great guy. He has a passion for the outdoors. The only thing I'm wondering about on that resume is I think he drinks Pabst Blue Ribbon, Jason, and we have to maybe talk about that with future players.
Right.
And then we got the next new one is Nick Miltimore, and Nick's been guiding the Brainerd area for a long time, and been good friends with all of everybody on our guide team, and he is a walleye nut. Loves to fish tournaments, but he just loves fishing walleyes, and super good stick and a great person with families and overall, and just we're super excited about Nick, and he's going to do a lot of our work in the Brainerd and Mille Lacs area, and he'll fish wherever we ask him to fish. But Nick's young, he's energetic, he's got a young family, and he's going to be a super good addition to our team. Then we got you two yum-yums, myself. Then we got the Animal. That was his name, the Animal Hansky. Actually saw a license plate he had a few weeks ago on social media from his first time guiding, the Animal Guide Service.
Did you see his boat with the shark teeth?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he had a Gary Roach edition.
His photo's pretty small to talk shit about that,
but Tim's been with us now. I came on with Tim and Jim. The three of us came on the same year, and Tim he's a fishing nut. The guy will fish for whatever swims, and he'll fish every single day if he can. And he's been an integral part of us. And then you got Jim Ernster, Mr. Jim, and Jim, like Tim and myself and Toby and Colby are all educators, and he's a coach as well. Jim he's a multi-species guy. He loves to fish all over, and especially get off the beaten path when he can do that. So, and Jim is just I don't know how to describe Jim. He's just a pretty level-headed guy.
You know, one of my favorite, I love small little details. I was watching Jim to play in the game to go to the state championship. He was the coach of the varsity Brainerd Warrior girl hockey team. Was that 2 years ago?
Yep.
2 years ago already?
3 and 2. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 and 2. And you were coaching with him, right?
Yep.
And like you said, Jim is very even keeled. I'm the type of person that kind of wears my emotions on my sleeve, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Jim is big fish goes in the net. Yes, like very calm, cool, and collected. I wish I had more of that sometimes in my life, right? And something I respect about him. Very intelligent, right? But I saw him playing in this game, and they went to the state championship, and I saw a fist pump come out of him.
It's Tiger Woods-esque.
Yeah, it was a Tiger Woods-esque fist pump.
Raw, pure emotion.
Pure emotion, and talk about the competitiveness that came out. So I think you find this in common is we are surrounded with guys that want to win. Passion. When you jump in one of our guys' boats, they want to win that day every single day, and that's what makes us really good.
Right.
It's us versus the fish.
And you know what? When that comes to an end, then that's a problem.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is no showing up to guide to make it just to get a check.
No, that's not where that's when we're gone.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Show me the door.
Yep. Oh,
Then last but not least, Chuck on Leach.
Yes. Our boy Chuck.
Got one of the finest beards in central Minnesota. We brought Chuck on, I think he came on a year or two after the three of us did, along with Murph, which I think we skipped Murph. Murph up there?
No,
we'll come back to him.
Who might have fired him?
Murph, you're missing Murph. We can find him on Snapchat.
And Chuck has been guiding with us now for, I think, 6-7 years, and great fisherman, just a great overall person. Lives up in Walker and spends a lot of time. A lot of us have other jobs, and when Labor Day comes around, teaching kind of becomes our deal. And so Chuck's kind of one of our, you might say, our full-time guides, and he guides until he can't guide anymore. And just a great person, and you learn a ton when you go fishing with Chuck. He's just a great dude, and he's been with us, and he's been a really, really big part of our guide service. And then this is Murph.
There's Murph. We got to fix the website.
Yep. I'll talk to our website guy.
Yeah.
He must not have paid his
I think
fees.
Toby knows something about that. And Murph, I think Murph came on either the same year as us, or I think he actually came on the year after myself and Tim and Jim. And another just super good dude. Lives over in Grand Rapids. Murph's got you should have him on for a podcast, because his story is pretty cool too, how he became a guide and working at the resort and just literally, he was, I don't know, what was he, 13 years old, something like that, and basically told a guy, I'll take you out fishing and I'll show you how to catch him. And you fish with Murph, there aren't many days. Murph has bad days, and he's
unreal.
He is a really, really good fisherman, and just a great person. He's
hey, man.
Salt of the earth. That's how I describe Murph.
Imagine that. He played hockey too, right?
Yeah. Happened to be at North Dakota as well.
And he's a heck of a cribbage player. Which we've
also learned that he has his own rules.
Well,
there's a lot of thing with Murph.
You need to keep a close eye. Murph, to say it politely, will do anything to get the W.
Oh yeah, well there you go, right?
Yeah.
And so things get a little heated when you have, 9, 10 alpha males around one campfire. It gets a little crazy, but absolutely a great friend to all of us, and he's truly a wood tick. I mean, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the bushes all the time, whether it's chasing partridge, scouting for deer, catching minnows for himself to use on opener, or taking his kids out. I mean, he's in the woods. It's all he lives for. And he truly, truly, truly is a great fishing guide. He's not an educator, but he would be a great one, because he does. He educates in every trip. And there's a lot of teaching and learning going on in that Crestliner.
If Murph was a teacher, it'd be the school Hard Knocks.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how he'd run it.
He'd be a great shop teacher. I
The
had
thing
one
that
of those.
the thing that makes me the most mad about Murph is he does a lot more listening than talking when it comes to fishing.
Oh, yeah. And it's a conspiracy theory, too. Like,
Yeah.
don't tell anybody anything because it's going to blow up on social media and everything else. And, you know, he's a wood tick, you know, but he's awesome. He's got the biggest heart in the world. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of faith, and he's a great, great family man. His kids are the most important thing to him, and his wife, Amber, and he's just a great member to this team.
Holy crap, we got a good group of boys, don't we?
We do.
Up there.
We do.
So blessed to call this the LOA Guide Team. I mean, from Chuck to Jim to Tim to Jason and Nick and Colby, and jeez, unbelievable. All right. Let's segue into current status of the corona. We're kind of at a tough position. Maybe we can just touch on and let the listeners know, and then we're going to get into really talk about fishing opener and everything else. Why don't we just talk on how we're going to handle it as a group? And because there's going to be many guide services that, you know, we've seen on social media where they're like, you can't stop me. Who's going to pay for my boat pay? Those type of things, right?
Right.
So let's just talk about how we're going to handle it as a guide service and what we're going to do.
Let's talk about the pandemic first of all. Like, we don't have a cure. There is no vaccine for COVID-19. I prefer to call it the China flu, but whatever, the COVID situation, pandemic. Mm-hmm. My wife's a nurse, so I've been in and out. I have a lot of respect for what they do, our medical field, and the situation that is bestowed upon us is something that none of us have seen before. And, you know, without getting political, there are orders in place. And so our governor here in Minnesota, Governor Walz, has established some orders, and 2033 is an order that has to do with recreation and outdoors and social distancing and stay-at-home order. And the way that reads is it's requiring, luckily we're allowed to go fish. Like, that's a blessing. Like, he understands the importance of fishing in Minnesota, and we're able to do that. With the stay-at-home order, we are allowed to fish with our family members or people that reside in the same residence as you do. So that means you can go fish. I can go fish with my daughters, my son, my wife, and that's it. That's our current situation here in Minnesota. So as a guide service, we're kind of handcuffed with what those orders are. And as a premier guide service, because I do believe that we are a top-notch guide service, and I think in the fishing industry we try to do things right. True professionals, right? A true professional tries to do things right all the time, whether you believe in it or not. Sometimes you just got to go about, put your nose down and go to work, right? And with the COVID situation, you know, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, like opener. You know, personally as a guide, I'm going to miss out on $1,000. Mm-hmm. You know, 2 trips back to back. It's a fun trip, good friends, relationships you develop as a guide service, and I'm not gonna be able to do that. And the conversation we had, you know, just personally as a fishing guide and the clients that I'm missing out on an opener were, you know, well, we can just go. Can't we just go? That's what, you know, the conversation we're having. And they're asking me if we can just go because I don't think they're going to enforce it and whatever. And I have certainly broken enough rules in my life, you know, outside of fishing and whatever else, where I bent the rules. But when it comes to this, you know, we want to set an example. And the example I think that's important is whether you're political, without getting political, whether you believe in it or not, it is the rules. And the fact of the matter is, right now we can't fish with people outside of our residence, and that's the fact. Yep. And so until July, let's hope not it's July, until May 18th, which is the next, you know, update on the order, we can't guide. And it specifically says in a bullet that you guides are not able to work right now. Guides, launches, charter captains, all bunched together, unable to work at this present time. So Leisure Outdoor Adventures currently is not booking any trips till after May 18th, and we will not be guiding as a group. And as individuals, you know, each of the guys that we just introduced are independent contractors, and we're all on board. I mean, this is important because it's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
we all would like to make that $1,000, but in reality, you know, a little town like Walker, Minnesota, where we base out of, you know, with somebody comes in and next thing you know, there's an outbreak and a hotspot in Walker, Minnesota. They're not able to deal with that situation. And so everybody, I believe, has the responsibility to do their part, and that is to follow the ordinances. I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I certainly don't understand disease spread and you know to outside of what we all been reading and researching. But I know what the order is. 2033 and 2048 say fishing, go do it, enjoy the outdoors, do it with your family, and that's it. And that's the way we're going to follow, and that's what we're going to do as a business plan.
Like it? Oh, I don't know if I like it, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, what else do you do? That's what we're strapped with.
Yep.
And I think we'll be I mean, when we do get our chance to guide, which we want, and I think we also want to, you know, there's a lot of guides out there that are in tough spots, and it's their livelihood, and we're definitely not trying to, you know, take anything away from those guys or anything like that. It's just this is, you know, what we know we have to do.
Well, it's not about our service versus somebody else. This is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And they're unfortunately, it's a situation we're in, and that's all there is. Like, I mean, we're professional guide service. Be professional, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, and that's what we pride ourselves on.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that's
absolutely.
what LOA's has been. Why we've been around 10th year.
Well, at the same time, just knowing that when it does open, that, you know, like anybody that's professional is going to make sure we provide whatever we need to do to make it, you know, safe and sanitized.
Things are going to look different
Yep.
until there's a vaccine. Things are going to look different, you know. And some of the states are starting to open up with guide services now, and Ohio is one, and Washington is looking to do it too, and they have parameters. So when May 18th, 19th, whatever day that we're told green light, let's go to work, we're going to have parameters. So things are going to look a little different for our returning clients, but it'll be a first experience, so it won't be a big deal. And everybody in the world right now has been working on social distancing and wearing masks and keeping your hands clean and washing your hands and things that we probably should have been doing anyways, right, as humans. But as a guide service, we're going to be looking at, one, understanding. Jason's our president. He does the phone calls, a lot of phone calls, and talks to people. You know, we're going to require people to let us know if they're not feeling well. You know, if you're feeling you're not feeling well the morning of a trip, we're not going to be able to take you fishing. And those type of trips, we're going to have to change some cancellation policies and think about that, you know. But those are things that we can't, you know, be in contact with. We can't have sick people in the boat. Back to residents of your home, you know, social distancing rules in our boat. We're really, the guides are the ones that are not within the residents. Like, so if I bring a family of 2 or 3 people in the boat, they're fine. They can sit on each other's laps and high five and whatever else. But as a fishing guide, I know Toby Kvalevog is going to have a mask on, or my gator. I probably have some blue rubber gloves on. I'm going to have hand sanitizer, and I'm going to make sure I'm staying away from people unless I extend that net out to 10 feet and net a fish for them, right? And it's going to be a virtual high five and take a picture.
Not as many hugs in the Lund.
Right. So absolutely. And as guides, you know, we're going to have to space our trips out a little bit. And we're going to have an hour between so we can clean and disinfect and have hand sanitizer ready for the next group. And those are things we're going to have to do. So that's going to be different, but we're going to be able to rock. And when it comes down to it, hook sets, fish catches, taking pictures, that's what it's all about, and sharing memories. So we'll be rocking. And I do believe it'll be before the end of May and before end of June, we'll be back at it. But COVID right now is here, and those are the rules, and we're just preparing as we can.
Yeah, I was still saying you can only control what you can control.
Yeah,
right.
You got to adapt to it and move on. Yeah. All right, let's get into Leech Lake and you know let's talk about some presentation, some fishing stuff.
Let's tell Murph spots.
Well, that's what I was kind of hoping. Maybe he took his own profile off because he's worried that somebody's like getting into his graph from the website or something.
Boy.
Hacker.
Yeah. Frito.
Yep.
Talk about your go-to presentation. Talk about things to look for, you know, what you're looking for, fishing opener, everything else. Let's talk a little bit about fishing.
Well, I think, you know, in this time of year, it's obviously bait's big. You know, so you really want to identify those areas where the shiners are going to be, because that's the bait of choice, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to have some in our boats, use them. I mean, it sounds like could be interesting, the bait situation. So keep that in mind when you're, thinking about bait here. But obviously the spot tail shiner is always number one. Jig and a spot tail, it's tough to beat, but, from a presentation standpoint, I think obviously you got to go with your confidence. Jeff's got a confidence jig. Toby's got a confidence jig. I've got one. It's probably going to be the first thing you toss out there.
What's your confidence jig?
Long shank of some sort. And then if I do that, it'd probably be a stand-up after that. So I think that's the one thing people forget about with jigs is the different profiles create different actions. And it's, the more you think about it, the more I learn about walleye fishing and the better you can learn a lot from these bass people because, think about bass guys and they'll throw something out there, then that didn't work, but then just something subtly different that has a different action could sometimes be the triggering mechanism. And I think jigs can work the same way, whether it's your cadence, how you're swimming it, or just the profile of it. Like I've watched Jeff enough and he's put on a clinics in front of me, just throwing out a stand-up jig, but he's got it figured out, and that's your confidence jig. And I think, you got to think about how you're going to fish for walleyes. On leech, wind is the key on leech, and so when you get wind, you can oftentimes make your drifts and work areas over, and you can snap jig and you can swim those jigs along. But what happens when it goes flat calm? And that's where, I always chuckle when I'm on leech and you see people who, that goes back to me again. Like, I don't want to be complacent as a fisherman, but you watch people sometimes just, they could be blowing 5 miles an hour and they throw their drift sock out and they're going like 0.1 and their jig is straight down. And I'm like, it's clear body of water. It's not going to work, and so that's when you got to think outside the box. And so when you're on leech, whether you're pitching jigs, getting it all away from the boat. And I think a lot of times, I think what works for me a lot of times when it's flat calm is either pitching to them or getting that thing ways out there and just start ripping it and going and get those, get those reaction bites. And I know I've learned a lot of that, from you and when watching you do those things. And so for me, it's going to be a jig in a minnow. I'm not going to be afraid to have a jig in a plastic.
Heck yeah.
And especially if you get a decent bite.
Yep.
But that also allows you to be super aggressive and super fast and really cover water. And that's going to be my go-to right there. And then, and I think the other thing is if you can find, whether it's on leech, is anytime you can find some current, that's going to be another go-to as well. Your bottleneck areas, current areas, that's going to draw those walleyes this time of year.
Yeah.
So to me, it's finding the shiners in that area, those shallow areas, and it could be 3-4 feet of water, and it could be, depending on the wind, it could be out a little bit deeper. But
sure. And
then find those current areas from there. I don't think the weeds are going to be up quite, so you're going to have, maybe you can look around for some weed growth too. But
sure.
I'm hoping that, the one normally we guide, Jeff and I guide together on opener, and we've got a big group of whole bunch of guys from all over, and
a Minnesota Viking.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've had multiple NFL players, and it's a fun group of guys, and it just didn't work out this year with COVID and everything. So I'm actually pretty excited about
going in and having fun.
Yeah, and just going to fish some spots on the lake I don't maybe necessarily get to, and just learning something.
I'm going to ask you about rod, reel, and line combination, but the one thing you talk about COVID, the one thing that it's kind of done is we don't do good with complacency, but there's been a little bit of complacency where I may be sleeping until like 7:30 every morning now instead of getting up at 6:30 every morning. I may be staying up till midnight. Like Christine, my wife's a school teacher, and she, like you guys, she's grinding away, but there's a little complacency. And fishing guiding was always, man, I still get anxiety over before I have a trip, and I think that's what makes us good is I'm up double checking to make sure my batteries are charged, and I'm re-rigging my rods. I got to tie that knot one more time, yada, yada, yada.
Shaking down the other guides to see where they're at.
Yes. A little soft shake. Yes.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yes. But this opener, Joe and I are going to go fishing, and there's going to be no agenda. Like, Gavin's going to come with, and we're just going to go have fun. Like, let's just go fishing. So I'm excited about that. I want you to talk about rod, reel, line combination, the whole setup. If you were to choose one for the opener, what would it be, and why would you choose that setup?
Yeah, I'm probably a medium light action rod. It kind of depends on what I'm doing. If I'm pitching, I like to have that little bit more of a lighter action with the softer tip, because it can be a little more forgiving. The walleye picks it up. You can kind of give them the rod tip a little bit. So, 6'6", 6'9" action. I'm actually kind of excited to try out some of these. I have got a couple of these Elliott rods I'm going to try out this year. So kind of excited to get one of those rigged up and pitch that out. I'm a mono guy, so I'll spool it up, Fluor, Abu Garcia, something, 2500 series reel, 6 pound Berkeley Sensation. That's my go-to. It ties good knots. They're strong. It seems to hold up really well. I've tried the braid thing. If I'm doing plastics, maybe ripping, I'll do the braid, but otherwise I'm a mono guy, I guess. And I know a lot of guys, they get to the braid and the super lines and this and that. Sometimes I think maybe it's because they just don't want to swap line out every year, maybe.
Yeah.
But that, a 6.6, 6.9 action rod, linked rod with a medium light action, with an 1/8 ounce jig and 6 pound sensation is going to be my go-to. And I probably got about 7, 8 of them rigged up with about 6 different jigs. And, I think color is a confidence thing when you think about jigs. Mm-hmm. On leech, I think you could probably catch them on about any color you want. But I do think the sun plays a major role when you're picking your colors. Yeah. And, gold is always great when it's sunny out. It always seems to have a little flash or silver of some sort. But
I used gold a lot last year. Parrot was my number one color, but gold was big for me last year. Actually, I use that most. All right, Tobalicious.
Same question.
Same stuff.
Yeah, it's jig and minnow time. It's shiner minnows and jig and minnow, and that's the bread and butter. I mean, cross Minnesota. I mean, we grew up in Bemidji, Northland, fish and tackle, fireball jigs, stand up or whatever. Those are tried and true. Jig and minnow. That's the deal. I think the shiner minnow is probably the most important thing. I mean, we can talk about line and rods and shiner minnow is what those walleyes are chasing. Those shiners now are spawning. They're up in there at chara grass and they're trying to find a warm place to do their business. And those walleyes have spawned. Now they've been done for over a week and they're hungry and they're looking to go in there. And I think most importantly, on opener, it's going to be timing. Timing is everything. Like you can find the walleyes. I mean, technology nowadays, you can find them side imaging and you can, or there's a bunch of boats over there and the nets are out. You obviously, there's fish over there, right?
Yeah.
So having the right bait is key, and then how you present your bait. For me, my go-to is blue and white on Leech Lake, blue and white jig, whether it's a stand-up or it's a...
I hate blue and white.
Well, there you go. So here's what I was going to say, though. Color is the least most important factor to me. It absolutely doesn't matter how far away it is in the boat, the line angle, how much bow is in your line, and how you're popping that jig is absolutely the most crucial component. And making sure your jig is in front of a face. And if they're hungry, it doesn't matter. And if they aren't hungry, then it does matter. And that's the key, is figuring out that cadence. And once you do that, you're going to catch fish. I do believe with the moon phase, we're going into a full moon, and we're going to have cold water. It's going to be cooler. And then with that sun shining down, that noon to 3:30, that's going to be the time to be out. So looking at the wind factors, northwest wind right now, I already got my go-to spot figured out in my head traditionally, right? And I'm going to make sure I'm over there and I'm pitching because it's shallow water. So Leech Lake is clear. You want to make sure you're a ways away, whether it's drifting or you're pitching jigs. That's going to be the key. And like Jason, 6 pound line, I think that sensation thing's been around a while. I think Jeff, that's something that you've shared with the boys, and most of the guys do use Berkeley sensation. And I know I've fallen into that. I've gone complete circle in my life. I was a mono guy. Berkeley XL, Trilene, then XT, the green, and then I went to Power Pro, Fireline, back to Power Pro, tied with fluorocarbon. And then I was working a trip on Leech Lake the second weekend of the season, which is close to opener. And we were literally fishing under the boat. And the boat next to us was catching more fish than we were. And everybody's fishing below the boat. So does it really matter? Apparently it does. Because when you're using monofilament, you just get a little bit more play out of that jig. It just wiggles. And your minnow's able to move. Fluorocarbon's pretty stiff. So when you get a fluorocarbon leader on there, that's the key. So light line, 6 pound test. I agree. I think these rods are amazing now, and a lot of the rods I too use Elliott's, and they are built specifically for certain actions. And so I was able to get my hands on a 7.3 last year. It's a longer rod. It's a rod I love to use for rigging. But when you're long lining jigs, 1/8 ounce, 16th ounce, when it's long lining way out there, they're so sensitive. They're composites, and they have Syncork technology in there. And so it's like a lightning bolt goes off in your hand when you get a bite. And I love to use that. So the rods, the reels, the line, 6 pound test, the smaller the better. I would even use 4. I just never tried it. I caught a 4 pound largemouth bass and 4 pound test crappie fishing the other day. Probably should be using that. You can do it. These reels are amazing nowadays, whatever the brand is. And so that's it. Yeah. So 6 pound test. My favorite is Sensation. Anything in that 6.6 to 7.3 light action 2 soft tips, I like that. And then Shiner. shiner minnow. That's the key.
It's so funny, you know, the fishing industry is still built to talk around color first. And I've talked about this in the muskie world the most. And I've actually took a little grief over, you know, you talk to any experienced hardcore fishing guide, they will tell you that color is the last on the spectrum. It does matter at times.
Sure it does.
But it's the last thing that is the most important. The first thing is many things like line angle, water temperature, current, green weeds, jigging cadence, you know, all those main factors.
Yep.
that and we call that nuance. I've always talked about that in the fishing game is that's nuance. Small little subtle details that aren't technically most difficult, and I talk about this with my son in hockey, is learning simple things, being able to do simple things over and over again, because in tight situations, that's when it's going to make a difference. Same thing in the fishing world. Don't put your success on color. Have that in the back of your mind, but put your success on fishing on all those other nuances. Wind, you know, you guys talked about all these things, and I'm like, you know, you're paying attention to wind, you're paying attention to bait clouds, you're paying attention to line angle, you're paying attention to speed, jig speed, how far is my jig away from the boat, yada, yada, all these things that make the difference.
Right.
You know, one thing as a guide, the benefit of being a guide is you often guys get to sit in the back of the boat and kind of watch. Yep. This is a really good piece of advice for people, especially this time of year when you're jigging. I mean, when you're linear rigging, you're just kind of dragging it along and little things you can do linear, but when you're jigging, there's, like you said, the cadence and the line angle and everything. And I just remember last year was a kind of a flat, calm day, whatever. It was a fishing opener, and I had a 12-year-old kid in my boat, and he was putting on a clinic. The dad and I were catching one here and there, and the kid was putting on a clinic, and I just kept kind of watching it. And the reason why this was a really good tip, if you got kids in the boat this weekend early, and you know, because for kids, the whole idea of snap jigging, and just, you know, maybe they don't quite get it, but I put just a little fireball jig with a little blade on it, and I thought and then we downsized the minnow, but it was those little things I picked up on and how he was working it, and he was just kind of swimming it through the column, and he was putting 4-1
dunk.
And but those, you know, so you start thinking about, you know, the people in your boat and what works, but then just watch the people. If one person's catching the fish, they're doing something different than what other people are doing.
Hear that?
My philosophy, that's the best thing ever. My philosophy is 1 bite's luck, 2 bites a pattern, right? And so do the math. It's a math problem, right? So I totally agree with what you're just saying. In fact, I was going to just expand on that a little bit, but you're spot on. And I have learned so much as a fisherman, tournament fisherman, and everything else through guiding. And it is exactly that. It's having the capacity to pay attention to the details and understand that you don't know everything. And quite honestly, be okay with that.
Yes.
Just expand on it when you learn something. When a light bulb goes off, pay attention and expand on it. And that's the key.
The best anglers in the world, I've always said this, the best angler in the world have the quietest mouth and the biggest ears. Just like Murph. We may tease him a little bit, but those are the best anglers that can sit and listen.
Right.
And pick up on nuance and try it. All right, we've been at this for an hour. We got to get through a few things. That's about as good as it gets when it comes to fishing opener and paying attention to those details. Don't be so worried about color. Be more worried about nuance. Figure out what that is, right? Let's talk about Lund Ultimate Fishing Camp. I want you to cover this in 2 minutes. Ultimate Fishing Camp, how long it's been going, what it is. Thank Lund Boats. They're amazing. And go from there, Frito.
Yeah, so 5 years now. This will be our 5th year doing it. It was kind of a brainchild of ours a few years ago, and we sat down and said, let's make this happen. And obviously, we couldn't do it without Lund Boats. They are our primary sponsor, and that makes it go. And we work with them on putting together a group of pros. So we get 10 pros, and we get 20 people. We try to keep it to a small amount of people. I think it makes it I always use the word intimate. It's, you know, people really get a chance to 2 people per pro. It's been a spectacular event for us. We have literally gotten to the point where every year is 20 new people. And we've had people from California, Washington, Florida, the Midwest. It's funny because you think all these people come from Minnesota, and every year we maybe get 3 to 4 people from Minnesota, and everybody else is from other states.
Yep.
Which proves the whole point of the Lund family and the Lund brand, and people want to be part of that. But it's neat. We've got all the big names, Lund Pro staff guys, Tony Roach, Perry Good, Ted Takasaki. We've got our leisure guys who part of it. Billy Rosner, Glorvigan, Scott, Ryan DeShane. And it's just a phenomenal event. We have it at Chase on the Lake. It's 3 days, and you get to eat, breathe, live fishing with these guys and ask them everything. And it's really I think it's kind of a family atmosphere.
Yeah,
totally.
You hang out at night, and
there's some crazy emotions last year with that whole deal. That's what fishing camp's about.
That's brotherhood, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten to the point where we're booked up for this year, and we're still optimistic we're going to have it this year at the end of June 28th, July 1st. And but we are taking, people are interested in getting signed up for the 2021. We're taking names for that, and usually we start early registration in December, and it fills up within about 4 weeks.
Yeah. That's the Lund Ultimate Fishing Camp with Leisure Outdoor Adventures. You guys want to check that out. All right, Tobalicious. We just signed up North Edge Exteriors. Our buddy Zach Christensen as another sponsor with the Guide Life with LOA. Last year was our first year. Joe and the team at Rawfish Creative Group produced it. Tremendous show, gained tons of exposure and excitement around being a guide and the Guide Life and ultimately becoming a better anglers and teaching people how to fish. Talk a little bit about the Guide Life and what we have in store for year number 2 and just kind of give a recap of that.
Okay. So the Guide Life series, last year we shot an episode with each of our guides. Now we have 2 more. And the idea behind the Guide Life was to share our passion, but give a little bit of background history too of each of our fishing guides and what we've been talking about here with this podcast. Really, is the competitive side, the passion for fishing, and our ability to share that, and where we grew up and started fishing, and a lot of the things we talked about with us 3 individually, but expanded amongst our group. And then, of course, supporting our sponsors, which are not just any sponsors. They're sponsors that are truly partners of ours, and sharing our passion in the Leech Lake area and or central Minnesota with Ray Sport Marine, with Lund boats, Crestliner boats, their pontoons, everything else. But so we decided to develop a platform to share our passion, along with educating people. I mean, a fishing show is a fishing show too. Like there's a little bit of, there's a nugget in every show, right? There, like people were talking fishing and some things you can do better, whether it's an electronics tip or jigging or fly fishing or whatever it may be. But Leisure Outdoor Adventures last year with our guides developed the Guide Life, and it's a series, and it's based on the Leech Lake area, and we're just sharing our passion and truly loving the outdoors with our guides. And of course, the end of that, we had the Guide Wars. So we really got to see the competitive. If you haven't seen the Guide Wars episode yet, you're not going to find a better fishing related series. And when it comes to, I mean, you're right. I mean, so ABO and Joe and the production crew behind it. I mean, we're still growing, right? Like the Guide Life is growing, and we're on season 2, and we're going to try to do some things better and expand it. But when you sit down and watch, and I've been doing a lot of this with COVID, watching a lot of shows, and I watch them for different reasons. Like my goals are to learn something in every show, so I'm not really breaking down media and whatnot. And there's some shows I can't stand, and there's some shows I love. But I'm telling you, the Guide Life series is a top-notch produced show. You're not going to find a better production anywhere in the fishing industry. There's some really good ones out there, but we're right there with them. That's all I'm saying. And then the story. So there's a story last year, the story of our guides. And now this year we got some exciting things coming up that'll be cool this year. I'm excited about that.
Yes.
But that's really the idea behind the Guide Life. We talked about getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting boat, gas, everything else, sharing that experience along with the experiences and memories that we make along the way. That's the Guide Life.
Nailed it. Man, we're excited about where we're going to take that. If you're interested in sponsoring or being a part of the Guide Life, we are looking at possibly a few more sponsors. It's been fun. We continue to keep our sponsors around, but like you said, we're taking the show and with the Rawfish Creative and Joe and their talents. Yes, man, it's fun on a small budget. It's amazing what we can do, and where we can take that. So we just love sharing it. Like, we're not making a bunch of money doing it. We're sharing the passion for fishing, and so that's what's super cool about it. And we'd love to have all the help we can because we're going to keep doing the show. I mean, we love doing it,
and it's only going one direction. And we'd love to help build that team. We'd love to have the help to build our team.
Yes.
With you, of course, to make that production happen. So.
Yeah, the more business is it is what drives and allows you to expand, right? And right now, the Guide Life is we're working on a small budget. We're very blessed to have the sponsors that we do. But as this continues to grow, the Guide Life is going to grow as well. It's not like we're putting the money; we're using it to continue to grow. And I can't wait to see where we stink and take it. After year 1, year 2 is going to be amazing. I can't wait to continue to grow this sucker. We have more and more people excited about it.
Correct.
So
yeah.
So all right, Frito. This is one of my favorite parts of the deal, and then Toby, we're going to get into you. Let's we could probably go for 3 hours on this deal, but I want you to go through this list of questions. The first one is your favorite outdoor memory, and then what products you couldn't live without, and then what drives your outdoor passion.
Well, I won't get too depth in all of them, but I'd say it's a tie for first for my favorite outdoor memory. One is I think how I really got hooked on fishing was catching when I was going to like 6th grade. I just did a thing for London, filming the same story, but basically telling my dad, just give me one more cast. It was Friday, last day of vacation, Lake Vermilion. One more cast, give me one more. And I chuck out that spinnerbait, and I catch a 41-inch pike. And I think from there, that was it. Like, I was hooked. Like, I'm just going to do it all the time. I love it. But then going to the competitiveness piece, and I think we all fish tournaments, and we love fishing tournaments, and winning the Leech Lake Walleye tournament 3 years ago was
so cool.
And Chuck was my partner, and it was one of the most surreal moments. You just not like, and how the 2 days came together, and literally just looking. I remember looking at Chuck on day 2 at about 1 o'clock after we had just had our last kind of an upgrade on one of our unders, and I said,
"You knew you had it."
I said, "I think we're going to win this, Chuck." And he's like, "Don't talk like that." And I'm like, "No, I think we got this." I said, because I said, there's going to be at least 2 teams that don't do what they need to do on day 2. And I said, we just replicated it, and if not, improved our day 2 bag from day 1. And we were doing something that nobody else was really doing. And it was a super cool moment. And then just to see how it all unfolded that day, and was something I'll never forget.
I would put that tournament as one of the toughest tournaments to win in all of walleye tournaments.
Yeah, there's a lot of good sticks, 155 boats,
fishermen.
and it's a bummer that we can't have it this year.
It's packed every year.
Yep. Favorite or my product I couldn't live without. Honestly, I fell in love with the tiller last year, and as a fishing guide, I don't know if I could. I could do it out of a wheel boat again, and Toby went back to the dark side and the
softy.
But my Lund Pro Guide, it's from a guiding standpoint, I just don't know if I could guide without it. It's just the Cadillac of guide boats.
I agree.
And then electronics, obviously, too, but Lowrance's and everything. But that boat, you can't get from point A to point B without the boat and the motor and the Mercury and the Pro XS. And it's just, I could live without it. And then I think I already mentioned what drives my outdoor passion is just not being complacent. I just
love that.
It drives me crazy. And as a football coach, I'm the same way. I'm one of those, as the president of the company, like, there's always something better. We can always be better. And as a fisherman, I'm the same way. I don't want to be complacent. I don't, it drives me nuts if we don't do well. I mean, Leech Lake tournament, we win it. And then last year, Toby and I fished together. We didn't have the best tournament in the world. Started off day 1 when Toby blew the fuse on the trolling motor. And the worst part about it is he told me he was going to do it. And sure enough, first spot, there goes the fuse. And I'm up there pulling rods out. And I'm like, this is not a good start to our tournament.
He had to re-rig his boat.
But it's the complacency, and just never letting the foot off the pedal. Just, you got to keep getting better. And I think as a fisherman, as you mentioned earlier, we fall into that sometimes, just going to the same spots and doing the same presentations. And
That's
I think,
good.
and I think that's how you got to live your life.
What makes me proud is when somebody books a guide trip with Leisure Outdoor Adventures, we can be so confident, and our guides are held to a higher standard. And that's through you and you communicating that with them, that we are not complacent guide group. Yep. We are professional, and we are held to a higher standard. So I thank you for that. I also think we should mention, you are also going to have ownership in the company as we move along
towards that. Yep.
Yeah. So
Exciting.
that's an exciting deal. All right. Tobalicious. I could probably,
I think we should work this same 3 questions backwards.
okay.
I'm going to go right off of what Jason was talking. So the outdoor for me, you know, I've been thinking a lot of this lately, the whole COVID situation, and I've thought about this forever. And you know, and Sunday I was, you know, I missed out. I've been trying to watch a little bit of church online and whatever, you know, and it got me thinking. I missed it. I didn't get in on time. But the outdoors, whether it's, and I'm as passionate as I am about fishing, I am as much passionate about that as I am with hunting, specifically whitetail deer. And it's spiritual for me. So there's a competitive side, but when I need a break, when I need to get away, there's a reason that fishing is allowed during this COVID break, as it is spiritual and it's mental health. And it's, for me, it's a passion that I've always had. It takes me back to when I'm 44 years old. I've had neck surgery, shoulder surgery, everything else. But when I get in my boat, it all goes away. It's spiritual, and I just love sharing that passion with people. But that's the reason why. You know, it's competitive. I want to catch. Of course, you want to be the best. You want to be the best guide. You want to win the tournaments. But while you're out there, you all share in that spirituality, and that's what I love about the outdoors, regardless of what it is, which is why I don't want to turkey hunt, because I don't have any more time for that. So that's that. So outdoors is my passion is truly about, you know, the spirituality of being outside. If there's something I can't live without, of course, it's my boat. You know, they've got to be rigged right, and you know, it's all the tools in the toolbox, right? But if there's one tool in that toolbox outside of a boat that works perfectly, which we have with Lund Boats and Mercury Marine, it's my electronics. And since day one, I've been a proud member of the Lowrance Pro staff, and I've said this to many people before. If I didn't get the Pro staff discount and buy electronics, I would pay full price for it. There's a lot of technologies out there, and things are changing, but forever I believe in my electronics. And I know that I can drive around, and sometimes clients are wondering, like, what are we doing here? We're just burning gas up. Well, am I paying for this? No, we're not. We're looking for fish. But when you stop, when you see that right bunch of fish, when you see that triple stack of walleyes and they're piled up and you know those going to bite, and you just get giddy because you know you shut the motor off and you hit the trolling motor and you put it down and you just wait, and that's when the memories start. So the electronics are the key to making those memories happen. So, and then the favorite, and you know, you've been chomping at the bit to hear the story, and you've heard it before, but it's pretty cool. And so I've been fishing a long time, and I've been fortunate enough to win a few tournaments here and there and place well in others, and I've fished at the highest of tournament levels at the FLW, and you know, back then when I was doing that, and the smallest of the blue water crappie tournaments in Bemidji. I've fished them all. Again, back to competing, I like to do that. And I've fished them with my dad, and you know, way back at the beginning, Dad and I won a tournament. We won a crappie tournament in Bemidji, and it was pretty cool. But I was young and dumb, and it was just something we're going to do every time we go fishing, right? And Dad was young enough too that he was just getting into it. See, that's one thing we didn't talk about. My parents, neither one of them fished. We went fishing once a year.
Really?
That was to like Canada or someplace, and the last time we went to Canada, I don't remember actually catching a fish. We started on one side of the lake, drifted across the other. It was a booze cruise. And my mom, I know, had to get stitches or glued her knee back together because she fell down the rocks somewhere on an island. It was just one of them deals. We weren't a family of fishing. It wasn't until that, again, back to that, when I was in 7th grade or whatever, when I really started getting into fishing. So my dad, he was so busy working to support the things that we like to do as kids that he really never got to fish.
Yeah.
So now fast forward to now I'm an employed, you know, a teacher in a Brainerd school district. Now I'm starting to guide fishing tournaments of my own. So now Dad's like, okay, I can do that. Let's do some of that. Let's do that together. And, you know, I've been so hard on my dad. We've been fishing tournaments for a long time together now. And the coolest memory I have happened a little over a year ago when, year and a half ago, with the Knights of Columbus, formerly the Krause Anderson Walleye Tournament in Lake Bemidji, which you had indicated the Leech Lake Walleye Tournament is one of the hardest tournaments. That tournament is tough because there's a lot of good sticks up in the Bemidji area with Northland Fishing Tackle Crew and all the guides, and that's people do up there. It's like us, you know, like except there's 100 of them. Everybody just goes out, and Lake Bemidji's not very big. You can't hide, you know, it's either you're on them or you're not. And so that tournament, my dad and I we'd top 10'd it a couple times, and that's great. And you know, he's getting older now. He's in his 70s, and he's ready to maybe think about being done fishing. And he had said, you know, there's one tournament that I'd like to win. It's that Kraus Anderson or Knights of Columbus tournament. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Like, and so 99 other teams, we'd all like to do it, you know, and whatever. And it's like Jason said with the Leech Lake Walleye tournament when they won, and every tournament I've won, there's always some little detail like we talked about that you figure out, or something just happens to make it a special day. Well, we were fishing and pre-fishing the day before the tournament, and we stumbled along Cameron Bar, and I decided to throw a jig up in the shallow water, and it's pretty cool because it's a typical spot. I mean, it's not a secret spot. There's 20 boats there in every tournament, but they're working the outside edge of the weeds or in the cabbage, and I decided to throw up shallow, and I missed my spot, and it landed in probably 4 feet of water in a moss bed, and I got thumped. You know, and it wasn't the cabbage. It wasn't the typical. It was shallower, way shallower, super shallow, as we're learning with side imaging, right? Like, when you think you got it figured out, you don't. And it was back to talking about opener, like pay attention to details. So I hit spot lock, another advantage of technology, hit spot lock, and I throw another one, catch another fish. And these aren't just walleyes. They're 19 to 19 3/4 inch walleyes. Those, you know, with the slot limit, 20 inches or under, you can have some, you know, a certain amount of those, and you can only have 1 or 2 over. Those are the rules of tournaments. So it's not just a walleye, it's the right walleye. So spot stopped, and there's nobody around us when we're pre-fishing, and catch a couple. And my dad, again, not a guy that has fished nearly as many hours as I have. Only knows what he knows from experience, old dog, new tricks type of thing. Well, it was a little bit windy that day, and we're drifting along in 8 to 11 feet of water, and he's pulling a leech. And I didn't even tell him I hit spot lock. I just did it and went about my business, right? And I look over, and I'm like third fish in the boat, and he's sitting there with a 3/8 ounce slip sinker on in 8 feet of water and a leech directly below the boat. And he's looking at his rod tip. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, you told me to Lindy rig. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm spot locked now. Like, figure it out. Let's go. You know, I'm a little intense, and I'm very hard on my dad.
A little.
He tells me a little bit that I get a little intense, and maybe Jason can, you know, he's been around me a little bit too. But I've heard that I get a little intense, especially during tournaments. But yeah. So I'm like, Dad, they're fisher. Look where I'm casting. Like, just throw that leech up there. So he throws this 3/8 ounce bomb, and it's like the biggest belly flop ever. Poosh, splash. And it lands. And I'm like, he goes, so he's just sitting there with his bail open. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, you told me to throw it up there. I'm just sitting there with it now. I'm like, oh, well, you might want to try slow reeling it back. So I had caught 19-inch or 19-inch or 18-inch or whatever. And he's like halfway back, and he's doing this just methodical, super, like I'd like close one eye to see if he's actually reeling. And and he catches a 5-pounder. On a leech. I'm like, oh, we can do this. So we're going to leave now. We don't need to burn any more fish. I hit a little waypoint, and I put a stop sign on that's the icon I chose with Loran's. So you can pick your icons, and it's a stop sign. That's where we're going, right? Next morning. So Dad, we come home. Dad's kind of peacocking a little bit, feeling pretty good, you know, hopping around and talking on the phone. And I'm like, shut your mouth. You don't need to be telling people what we're doing. Just whatever. Tell them we're struggling like Jeff does. And and so he's in the house, whatever, having dinner, and I'm thinking back to bass fishing. I'm thinking slip bobbers, or I'm thinking a short little like Carolina rig they can throw with a light bullet weight and pull it through there with leeches, because that's what he did. So I got all his rods rigged up. And so the next morning we beeline over there, and there's a couple boats, but definitely nobody went up on top of the flat where we're going to fish. And I hit spot lock, and I throw mine out, and I got his rods out. He's ready to go. And I throw out there, and I dumped one of my first casts. I'm like, good, they're here. I mean, I was mad that I lost, like I hooked it, lost it, but because it was literally every cast before. Anyways, I dumped 2 in a row, and then my dad goes, I got one, get the net. Just so quiet. I get the net, he says. I'm like, what? I look over, and his rod's just bouncing off, and perfect. He reels in, I scoop the fish, throw it on the floor, go back, grab my rod, throw it out there again, missed another one. I'm like 0 for 7. And get the net. I heard, get the net. He's got another one. And Dean went 7 for 7 on casts, and it was on cast 5 that I realized he totally disregarded my strategy of the leeches and Lindy rigs and everything else, and he had a Ken catch tackle, wide gap shiner jig on, and he was throwing it up there, and he wasn't even jigging it, he was letting it sit, giving it a little shake, picking it up, and there's a fish on there. So what did I do? Started shaking it, throwing it up there, letting it sit, and we had the perfect 19 and 7/8 fish in 45 minutes, and he probably caught 20. So to watch a 70-year-old man at that point in his life acting like a 6-year-old was absolutely special. So fast forward, so the day went well. We caught a couple big fish, and we ended up winning the Knights of Columbus tournament. His goal, right? So now I have to back up. So from the get-go, when we started fishing tournaments together, we're always trying to have that, and a lot of guys do this, have that pre-tournament song. So ours is Philip Phillips, the what is it? Hold on,
yep.
Whatever that song is, right? Phillips.
Spoon song.
I'm coming home, Philip Phillips. And so we win the Knights of Columbus, and like Jason said, it's surreal. You're up there, and my dad doesn't talk, so I, done it enough that I try to put on a show up there and be Toby, whatever, being silly. And my dad's like, yeah, whatever, he's talking. It wasn't a big deal, but we left. We get in the boat with our big cardboard check for $10,000 or whatever it is, and I'm looking at the old man up in the front with his gray hair, and he's kind of facing front. He's not looking back, and I know why. It's emotional. It's spiritual, right? That's why we do this deal. And we're driving across the lake from the city park, the Paul Bunyan Park in Bemidji, to Nymore access is about a mile, maybe. And if you're on plane, it takes you 20 seconds. And if you're at idle, it takes you 5 minutes. And we're sitting there talking and whatever, and he's just sitting forward, and we're not even speaking, but we're talking the same language. And I went over there in KB 101, Paul Bunyan Country, turned on the radio, and like it was cued, Philip Phillips came on.
No way.
And I saw that 70-year-old man just hunch over, and I could see his shoulders, the tears, and they were coming down mine. And it was spiritual, man. It's fishing, and that's what it's meant to be. And I get to enjoy that with my dad, and you enjoy that story too, and so do you, because you've lost parents, and I haven't. And again, I've talked about how fortunate I've been. It's a special one for me.
Yep.
That's why you go fishing right there. My word. Thank you for sharing that again.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's as good as it gets. And that is what drives. That is exactly what drives this company, Leisure Outdoor Adventures, is making memories like that. And
there's one in every trip, right?
Oh.
Every single guide trip, whether you catch 500 or you catch 2, there's a memory to be told. There's a memory to be shared.
Yes.
And yeah, it's awesome. It's a passion, man.
That's why this has been going on for 10 years. I can't wait to see where we have this thing in year 20, huh?
Bigger and better.
We better throw a party for the 10 years anniversary.
All right.
It's a good idea.
Party on. Boys, man, what an honor to have you sit here. Probably my favorite podcast. I know we're only have 5 of these so far, but man, I don't know how we're ever going to top this one. As good as it gets.
At least it was short.
When we started this,
we're going to be under 90.
When we started this deal, Joe and I were like, how in the world are we going to talk for an hour? I'm like, all the guys, Andrew and Matt, I'm like, guys, anytime I've done radio with KFAN, it's been like, or whoever, like they got to cut you off because we can go on. And the response from people that have listened to these is it's as good as it goes. But this is the longest one, almost hour and 30 minutes, besides the banter that you guys gave me at the beginning. But
yeah, there's not enough.
Looking forward to more memories, and it's as good as it gets, boys.
Well, thanks for having us. I appreciate it, and we're excited. And you didn't talk a lot. You facilitated this, but you're a huge part of this, and you wear a lot of different hats. And we're very fortunate enough to have Jeff as one of the three-headed monsters too. And a lot of our guides look up to you, and you share a wealth of knowledge, and you've been very successful. And we're lucky to have you too as well, Jeff.
Thank you for that.
I'd echo that. The one thing he doesn't do is share fishing spots.
Oh, goodness gracious.
A one-way street. Or bait.
All right. For Toby, Jason, the entire Leisure Outdoor Adventure team, this is Jeff Anderson signing out. This podcast number 5, ABO Outfitters. those are memories that we'll never forget.